Well, now I want to ask you about Tron, of course. We can call it Tron Ascension, right? Yeah, that's out there.
That was the working title. Yeah, TRON ASCENSION.
So how did you get involved in TRON Ascension, and how did you meet Joe Kosinski, the director?
I think it was like coming off of Batman v Superman, and then I just got a call from his producer, who asked if I'd be interested, you know, in working with Joe and going into the Tron world. And yeah, of course, like I was like, this sounds awesome, you know. And I was, because I loved Tron Legacy, you know. It was, that movie is just, I mean, it, and in so many ways it still holds up, you know. It's like and it's such like a singular world, like the way that it looks and everything. So so I was pretty, I was totally into jumping into that.
And what was your show in the movie? You were an illustrator or concept artist and also storyboards?
So I guess like, the funny thing is, I guess it always kind of gets put under the umbrella like senior illustrator or something. That's like a technical role. But yeah, I just consider myself a story artist, you know.
Right.
Like that's what I think I'm doing. I'm trying to distill the moments like of the story, like, and encapsulate them into
the keyframes.
Into keyframes. You know, it's like I do. And storyboarding is incredibly important as well. But there's something magical about keyframes, I think. You know, it's like I always think like a good keyframe is worth like, 100 storyboards.
Well, tell me about the keyframe of Ares, the antagonist of the film.
Yes.
What can you tell me about it?
What do you know about the film?
Almost, well, there's some things we know. According to Joe Kosinski, it was a invasion movie from the grid to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some theories about the character of Ares. People think he was the one who bring the world to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
Well, his name is Ares, so the god of war.
Exactly.
So you make as many. It's like it's not a far leap. To make that assumption.
Exactly.
And as far as I don't think I'm really, it's been a while and whatnot, but yes, he, there was this play between, what was the grid world and the real world, like that was going to be, and taking place in Ascension, I mean, they end the movie with, what's her name? Cora. Like in the real world. So obviously, that's where it's going. And so that piece was essentially, was kind of revealing that character, and even like my artwork, I feel like is always kind of like a slow reveal. It's like you don't start like it'll be like from behind, or backlit or something. It's like you always, it's like, oh, you don't know, like I don't get to see the character like realized yet, so neither do you. And I also think that's just kind of how ideas work. I don't know. Anyway, so so that was like an image of, I think this character being like just after he had been constituted into the real world, and so so he, you see him sitting up and then you see the design on his back and his disc, and then my cues, my lighting and design cues definitely came from, I think I said in the email, like big fan of James Turrell, who's like this, light artist. It was inspiring, like I think so. So yeah, and I like ethereal space type feeling spaces, you know. So yeah, so that was kind of like where that mood came from.
Right, and the art from Sid Mead.
Yes, yeah, and then the whole design on his back was really just like an unused design that Sid Mead did.
Yeah,
you know, for Tron. Yeah, I mean, and you know, and he's the GOAT. He's yeah. Sid Mead's probably done more to influence like how we look at, like, you know, like sci-fi worlds and architecture and fashion and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. Well, I don't know if I can say much of anything that people probably don't already know or kind of like assume, you know. Obviously I can't, but yeah, it's like it's been a while for one, and so yeah, and for two, I don't think I can hash out like my whole story ideas, but it was essentially what you were saying, you know. It was like, how do you take, you know, it's like how do you take this expansive world, you know, and these characters that like kind of exist in this one space, and what happens, you know, when you bring those things into our physical reality, you know, and those, you know, and yeah, and so there's a you know, there'll just be crazy stuff happening, you know. It's like, what's a light cycle look like, you know, on a freeway or something like that. You know, there's yeah, it's like, so there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of directions you can, or you know, you can take it. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard well, it's not hard property. I think it's sci-fi in general. For me, it's like, it's hard to like to establish the rules of the world, especially when it's something so crazy like Tron, you know. It's like, and I'm like always a stickler for world rules, you know. It's like, I want to like feel like I understand how these, like, where the limits are on things, you know, because then you know how far you can like suspend your disbelief. So
yeah,
in one sense, it's like, I think Tron's a hard movie because it is so fantasy, but also some sci-fi, you know. And so it's like, because it's trying to make those ends meet.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think sometimes that also leaves it feeling a little too loosey goosey in terms of like the rules.
Well, how did you find out about the cancellation of the movie?
Oh, they just call it, like, we were all working. We were literally like in this studio in Berlin, you know, but they were planning the production and everything, and yeah, and then one day that one of the producers, they just called us all out and said, oh, it looks like they're gonna put it on the shelf, you know, like, and I think it was also right after literally like Tomorrowland came out.
Yes.
And then Monday they told us that they were shelving the movie.
Oh, right after the weekend.
Right, yeah. So it like, you know, they, I guess, you know, the number crunchers and the bean counters at Disney looked at that and were like, no, this isn't the right time.
Yeah, we knew about Tomorrowland being involved in the decision.
Yeah. But it was cool. Yeah, it was, while we were working on it. Yeah, it was fun. There were like, you know, a lot of, yeah, it was a good group of artists and people and stuff. So I enjoyed it, you know. But I think it was only, I was on it for about 6 months, 5 or 6 months, something like that. Like, we're developing all the, like, you know, the visual look for the film, you know, but yeah, it hadn't gone into, you know, it's like, it was like, it didn't make it to like shooting or anything like that. So yeah, it was pretty much still like in the dream phase, like for all of us working on it, you know.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And I met like a lot of, a lot of cool people on that. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how and when that property resurfaces, because it's like and I've even, it's like every once in a while I hear, heard things here and there about, about it, how they want to go into that and next. It doesn't look, I mean, it looks like it would be a new, right, like a new take or something like
a reboot.
that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it's a full-on reboot or how they how they go into it. Yeah, it was funny. I always think about on the one thing that I cannot stand about Tron Legacy is there's the scene where it's like she's just saved him and she's in and she's driving the car and they're like up on the cliff or whatever, and she's what is it? They're like talking, and it's like that classic kind of like Hollywood thing where like she's talking, not looking at the road.
Yes.
She's just talking, and she's doing like this with the steering wheel. And every time I'm like, this is so And it was funny, and I remember like talking with I think I meant when I was on it, I mentioned that to Joe, and he was like, I couldn't get her to stop doing that shit every time. It was just but but that's the thing, is like I definitely got to be a fanboy, like when I was working on Tron, because it was also like it was fun working with Joe, because Joe had all this experience, working on the previous film, and also the fact that like he got Daft Punk, which is like one of my favorite bands, or groups of all time, and so and he would like he would do things. He'd like call me into his office. He'd be like, hey, you want to hear like some of the Daft Punk tracks that didn't make it onto the movie?
No way. No way.
Yeah. And I'm like, of course I do. So it's like little things like that, or like little privileges that were pretty cool.